let me put it this way. I would confuse resting with being still. So I could rest on the couch while watching Netflix.
Yeah.
I could lie in bed and doom scroll on TikTok. That's, I would confuse stillness with that. Hello everyone and welcome to the Remind podcast. My name's David Masterton and I'm with Dr. Ashleigh Moreland, and today, Ash, we're talking about the difference between being still versus being numb.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when people think of stillness, quite often they will think of things as anything that's physically still. Like, oh, but I'm watching a movie. I'm going to lay on the couch and watch a movie, or, oh, I'm just going to listen to my audiobook, or I'm just going to read, or I'm just going to insert whatever other still activity here. But that's not really what's meant by stillness, is it?
Well, for me, previously, sitting still, let me put it this way. I would confuse resting with being still. So I could rest on the couch while watching Netflix.
Yeah.
I could lie in bed and doom scroll on TikTok. That's, I would confuse stillness with that. Versus sitting on the couch or lying in bed, but with the intention of just not thinking anything. To be able to
I would even say it's not so much about not thinking anything, because the thinking activity may still be there, but it's not doing anything. It's like even just observing the thinking.
Yeah, well, like focusing on your breath, right? To be able to sort of drop into, okay, because for me, my idea of being still is my mind quietens. And because that is that's a new thing for me. So that's only been able to be achieved more recently. And because normally when everything's quiet, there's an internal monologue in my head of thoughts, of dialogue, of memories, of future worries, of all of these things. And they just sort of keep on rolling on. And so, but I don't have that necessarily if I'm being distracted by an external stimulus.
Yeah.
If I'm watching something. And I mean, I don't think I'm alone here, but I've get pretty good at watching something I'm only half interested in on TV, sitting on the couch while looking at my phone.
Still multitasking. Yeah.
It's sort of
I
like
used to do the same thing.
it's like one stimulus. And I'm not saying this is me all the time, but I do get to a point where it's sort of like I would have the TV on while looking at my phone because that stimulus isn't enough. I kind of need to be able to go between the two because I kind of get bored of one or the other. Yeah. And so that for me it's almost like soothing. It's like, yeah, it's certainly not being still for me in my body, in the moment, when there's no distractions.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? And it goes to show how many people, this is something that comes up a lot for me, a lot with clients, a lot with even just general conversation. I see it a lot online. And I even observe it in myself. Like sometimes there will be an element of self-soothing. If, like you said, if I'm laying there and I am scrolling on my phone, or I'm laying there and I just want to zone out and watch a movie, it's mind numbing. It's the mind numbing activities. We literally call it mind numbing.
Yeah.
And so if we are mind numbing, we are still turning away from the mind. We're still turning away from the inner experience. So where to from there? If we're not mind numbing and watching a movie and not, reading a book and scrolling on our phone is not stillness, then what's stillness? And I think something that frustrates me is people think meditation is about emptying your mind. And then so when their mind is still very full, they think they're doing it wrong. And so they get this belief that I suck at meditating or I can't meditate. But what if meditation was being in the present moment while the mind was doing whatever the mind was doing, without getting caught in with it, without getting tangled up by it. It's just observing what the mind is doing and being present and still in the moment.
Interesting thought. Yeah, because I've researched, not research, I've come across that there's sort of two different streams, and there could be more, but this is one thing I've come across. Two types of meditations. There's one for the mind that is overactive, which is absolutely me and where I have all my experience in. And so that is trying to teach the brain to be the opposite of where it normally sits, being overactive. And then there's the other one, which is meditations on people who have a very low overthinking capacity, where the meditation actually draws them to contemplate on something. So to try and bring them into the opposite. And most of the people I speak to, and I think there's a lot of people as well, that when they think of meditation, it's that sort of, and just, right? We have to clear our mind. So that's a stereotypical meditation that seems to be kicked around a fair bit. And I've lost where I was going to go with all of that. My mind's so still, there's just decided to go, no, sorry, David.
That's okay. This is something that, again, came up in my group program recently, and it's so fascinating because, I mean, we've probably all fallen into this trap, right? Especially, I mean, we have a big focus in our podcast on neurodivergence and people whose brain is wired a little differently, and why this stuff can be so hard. And something that I find a lot is it's actually a flight response. If we're constantly trying to outrun and constantly trying to run away or escape from reality, that's a flight response. And that flight response can then push over into a freeze response where we do completely become incapacitated and numb out sort of longer term. Now, if we are convincing ourselves that our rest activities, like binge watching TV, like reading or whatever it is, if we convince ourselves that that is our stillness, well, when are we ever present with ourselves? Because we can't be paying attention to the emotions in our body. We can't be paying attention to the tensions or the sensations in our body and what we're actually experiencing in the present moment if our mind is mentally being drawn to something else. And so we're actually abandoning ourselves again, not because we're physically busy, because physically we're still, but by distracting our mental activity, then once again, we're kind of avoiding facing and turning towards what's actually happening in the experience of our body.
And I guess that's really understanding what does being present mean.
Yeah.
I get this where someone will say, like on a video or a TikTok or something, unclench your jaw. And people that, like I notice myself going, was I just clenching my jaw? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And it's sort of like, well, okay, just by clenching my jaw, what's my body telling me? Okay, well, something, even though there's something in the back of might be, like I'm doing it subconsciously, is what I'm trying to say. And so being present is learning how to connect with the sensations in your body, as opposed to just trying to intellectualize, is there something going on in my head? Do I have a worry? Well, you might not have a worry, but that's fine. Doesn't mean you're being present.
Yeah, exactly.
It's how does your body feel? Can you feel a sensation? What are you hearing? What can you smell? Is there, what can you feel under your feet? Do you feel a little bit heavier? Not, like you're putting on weight, but more like a sort of sinking into the chair or to the bed. Is there all of these things where you can be really mindful of what's happening right at that present moment without thinking about, the RBA's raised rates. I wonder how much the mortgage is going to go up.
Yeah,
Or,
I wonder what I'm gonna have for dinner tonight. Oh, I
ooh,
don't think
good
I have
one.
any chicken stock. Wonder if I could use beef. Mm,
Absolutely. Oh, wouldn't it be great if, so and so was able to do this at some stage? Or, I haven't spoken to this person in a while. I'll give them a call.
yeah.
It's,
Do you know, I've had people even tell me that these are the thoughts that go through their mind while they're having sex. Like when they're
okay, yep.
like so disconnected from the present moment that even in that moment of connection and intimacy, there's no presence and connection. There's their physical body is there and it's engaged, but their mind is just wandering off to think about all
Mm,
these other things. And so the interesting thing is if you and I were having a heart to heart and I was physically there, but I was mentally elsewhere.
mm.
Energetically, you would perceive that, you would pick up on that, and you would feel completely invalidated. You would feel like I don't care. You would feel like I you're not important to me and I don't care about what you're telling me.
And I'll
And
just try
so
and wrap it up. Yeah.
how does this incapacity to be present and incapacity to be still in mind, body, and spirit actually affect our ability to be connected deeply with and to others?
Well, and when you talked about these examples, right, there's a reason behind that. Now, it's unique to everyone, but there's some common themes as to why that might feel that way. And I think obligation is a big one. They feel obliged to be in this situation and to fake it till you make it kind of thing, whether that be with your loved one in bed or, just talking with someone, as opposed to, okay, well, my authentic self right now doesn't want to be here for whatever reason. However, I feel shame about saying that. And so I then push myself into this situation because if I don't, here's a list of logical reasons why I need to be doing this. Because I'm a good person, I need to be a good partner, I need to da 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 da. There's a
Yeah, and
trauma.
what that looks like, right? So you might think, "Oh, I for me to be a good partner, I need to sit here and listen to you tell me about your day." But if you are not energetically present and mentally present, well, you're not actually receiving them and their day. So, are you being a better partner if you say, I really want to hear what you've got to say and I really want to hear about your day? I don't have capacity to receive this right now. Can you tell me a bit later? I just need 10 minutes to decompress. Or can we talk about it once I'm not doing this? Is a big one in our home, is like pick your time, where I'll have a lot of couples who will say to me, "Oh, but we tried to talk about it, or I tried to communicate." And I was like, "Okay, so tell me what that looked like." "Oh, well, so and so was doing the dishes and trying to feed the kids and trying to get them ready for bed and trying to do that." Yeah, no, that's not communication. That's talking at someone while they're actually dividing their mental and cognitive resources across a number of other things. There is no way they can be emotionally, energetically, and mentally present for that conversation. That's not communication. And so, again, when it comes to this feeling connected, we can only feel connected if we're able to be present. And presence in this life is right here, right now, in this moment where my body is. So, the reason why body awareness is so powerful in really establishing this sense of stillness is because our body is the very thing that exists in this time and space. So if we come back and reconnect with our body where we can be still, and in that example where, you know, I might be in the kitchen with 27 other things on my mind trying to get done, um, my husband's not going to get my attention in that time. Is if he tries to bring up something important to me during that time, he's going to end up feeling rejected and he's going to end up feeling like he might as well not say anything because it doesn't matter to me anyway, which is not true.
Well, I like what you said about picking your moments, and we're going back to sort of like, well, do I fake it Is it better to pretend to be listening than to tell someone to, stop, I don't have capacity for it? Which one's better? Well, ultimately, if you're doing anything out of fear, that's not the right way to be doing it.
Yeah.
If you're doing it out of shame or guilt, it's not the right way to be doing it. Do you want to be a better partner? Most people do. Are they capable? Well, they're probably trying. So, but if they only know, okay, if I don't know how to connect with myself, I've got no hope connecting with you. But we use words and logic and societal norms to mask that, because that's how it's been modeled to us. That's how we've been shown.
Yeah.
But you have to have faith not only in yourself, that you can push through the fear, the guilt, the shame of saying no, because the other person could turn around and go, but you're not being a nice person. And then you have to have faith on their side that they can see the value in that, and they're doing the work as well. So being a better partner, yeah, but it's going to be based on where are you in the relationship? Where's the relationship at when it comes to this awareness?
Yeah.
And then working through that, because then what you'll end up doing is going, okay, great, I'm in this relationship and I'm becoming more aware of myself. The relationship isn't, my partner's not doing it, but they're not a bad person.
Yeah.
They're a good person and I love them. So how do I deal with this? If I become authentic about this and start to go, well, actually my needs are now growing and da-da-da-da-da-da, you start to see it for what it is, and then it becomes a real problem. So that's when you turn to numbing, because when you sit in the stillness of all of that, you know what you need to do.
Really uncomfortable.
You know what you need to do.
Yeah.
So, but you're so worried, there's still this shame, guilt, fear of, whatever it is. Because again, we're not always dealing with bad people. We're just dealing with people who are just different or not necessarily interested at this point in time to have the same self-awareness. So being still, you're going to always come back to what are the things you need to work through? What are the things that keep on coming up? Because your body and your authentic self will keep on reminding you little bit by little bit. And when does it speak the loudest? When you're the most connected to it.
Yeah. Well, because finally got a voice, right? In my group program, I got everyone to write a sentence about what their belief was around stopping or around being still. And we had things ranging from when I stop, there's too much pressure, and if I stop, I'm lazy.
Ooh.
And I can't even remember the other ones off the top of my head, but I would encourage you, if you're listening to this or watching this, stop and ask yourself, what is your belief around this? What is your belief around stopping? What is your belief around being still? Because if you were, as a kid, kind of hounded and your parents rode you quite hard on being productive and don't be so lazy and all these kinds of things, well, then that's going to be remembered as a threat in your nervous system. And so that means that as an adult, you're going to do whatever you can to avoid the threat or evade the threat, which means you will never stop and you'll never be still. And if you feel like people who sit back and do nothing, really observe your judgment here. A great way to determine this is when you see someone else sitting back, kicking back, not doing anything. Maybe their house is a mess and they're sitting on the couch and they're having a nap or whatever it might be. What judgments and thoughts do you have about them? Because they're the same judgments and thoughts that you're trying to evade within yourself.
That you have on yourself. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And something that I started doing was practicing. So I would just sit, and my awareness around this really rose one time because I was sick and I just felt like I just needed to stop. I just needed to be still.
Yep.
I was going to go and lay on my bed, but it was the middle of the day. And I opened my pantry door and we have these plastic containers with a whole heap of my husband's medications and our supplements and stuff in them. And I saw crumbs in the container. Now, those crumbs had been there probably for months. I just had never seen them. And the one time that I was about to go in the middle of the day and lay down on my bed, I saw the crumbs and I could not leave those crumbs. So I emptied out the containers,
Yeah.
cleaned them all out, put everything back in, looked at the time, and all of a sudden, I don't have time for a nap now. Oh, damn. And I also remember things like going to have an MRI or going to the doctors and getting told to lay down and having these weird thoughts like, oh, what a delight to be able to lay down during the day. But
Jeez.
it's
Okay. Yeah.
literally taken for that to happen. It's just
Mm.
bizarre. Like it feels like such a strange thing to be forced to stop in the
Yeah.
middle of
Well,
the
I
day
mean,
without guilt. It's like I have a reason. I've been given an out.
like there has to be a purpose behind the stillness, which in
Yeah.
itself is that stillness. Like, I mean, so I would say that so long as you can be still, being a bit like having a toolbox, right? It's got all these different tools in it. It's got screwdrivers and drill bits and hammers and all of that. Numbing and being still should be both found in the toolbox.
Yeah, they are.
And so from a numbing point of view, it's to sort of say, if you ever numb yourself, don't be hard on yourself. What we're sort of saying here is if you only know how to use numbing as a way to achieve what you perceive to be stillness, that needs looking at, because to find true stillness and to find peace is through the healing journey
Yeah.
and looking through what are some of the limiting beliefs, some of the fears, the shames, the guilt that come through all of that, the patterning. And once you've got the stillness, it's not as though you never numb yourself. You'll probably still need to every now and again, but it's not the only tool in the toolbox. You'll probably
Yeah.
find that stillness will come out a lot better in a more healthier way than it is to constantly numb yourself.
Yeah.
And
100%.
it's
And
just knowing the
there's
difference.
nature is a really great way to do this. I find that if I'm camping and I sit in front of a campfire, I can be present in front of that campfire. This is why I find camping, I come home and it's like one weekend of camping has restored my whole entire soul because there's been
Wow.
so much stillness. There's so much opportunity for stillness. So quite often when we go camping, we don't have phone reception or don't have a charger. So I just leave my phone off pretty much the whole time. I will often take books with the intention of reading them, but most of the time, honestly, I just end up sit there in front of the fire, just watching the crackles and, listening to the crackles, watching the flames.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love doing that.
Same
I,
with running water, like the
mm,
sound and the visual of just being present with running water in that moment. That's very, very, very restorative for me because it's I am still and I'm present right there.
hmm
Anything in nature like that, like I got into a habit, I haven't done it in a little while, but I got into a habit of making myself my hot drink in the mornings and then sitting outside in the sun. But in winter in Melbourne, it was really cold. So I would stand bare feet on the grass, which sometimes even had frost on it. So I was
nice.
really present in my body and I would be aware of the cold on my feet and the slight breeze on my face and the warmth of the coffee mug in between my hands, the sound of the birds around me, the views of, the sun rising and all that kind of stuff.
Mm,
And there's so much in that very moment that anchors me to the moment that there's stillness there. So there's some ideas. If you're struggling with
absolutely.
stillness, try this. And guys, if this is new to you, what I would recommend is set a timer for 1 minute. Set a timer for 1 minute and focus just on staying in the present moment just for that 1 minute. And notice the discomfort that comes up. Notice the compulsive urges to want to get up and go, to want to get up and do something, to
Mm,
want to pick up your phone, to want to distract yourself, to have thoughts come in, that's what you want to do. And then observe those compulsive tendencies or observe those compulsions and speak safety to it. Let it know, I'm here. I hear you. I see you. I've got you. That's how you're going to get through that. gradually increase your time. And then over time, you'll be able to be present with yourself and experience yourself through your senses in a lot more detail for a lot longer.
Yeah. And I think being comfortable with silence is a really good way to start. So I find that there's not too many people around me who can sit with me in silence and be okay with it. And I can just be enjoying the moment. And I also sort of find that sometimes I have to be a bit more mindful of others where I'm around, because it's like, am I being completely present in the moment, or am I being rude? But also, practice some of that. It doesn't need to be for a long time, but observe how you are around silence in a conversation.
Ooh.
Because that's another big, and again, like what you said, observe it. Don't use it as a test. Can I do this? Well, probably not. I certainly couldn't when I first started. But it's a matter of an observation of, okay, what came through this time? A floodgate came through. And then from there, I would then suggest journaling it out.
So what questions would you ask yourself if you were journaling? Because this isn't, I took for granted that some people think that journaling is literally like what I used to do in primary school. Dear diary, today I woke up and I had
it could be
steak and salad for breakfast.
if that's what you want it to be, it could be whatever you like.
Well, so the richness of that isn't really there. Journaling is if you're really wanting to use it therapeutically, journaling is about getting to the meaty bits, the really nitty-gritty stuff around what was the discomfort. This is what I tried. This is what I felt. Why? Keep asking yourself why. Why did I feel uncomfortable in my body? I felt like I should have an answer. Why did you feel like you should have an answer? Well, I felt like they would judge me and think I'm stupid. Why did you feel that they would judge you and think you're stupid? And just keep going. Where did you learn that? When did you learn that? Why do you feel that? Where do you feel it in your body? What does it feel like?
And if someone had said that's journaling at the start, I never would have started it.
Yeah.
Because it was way too confronting. Because for me, I had this perception of journaling, which was, it's like, it's the young schoolgirl, dear diary, today I, saw some unicorns and thought about a rainbow and all of these type of things. But I had to start somewhere, and all I did was, the way I started journaling was simply noting my observations and actually getting them to speak out and having to recall. And then from there, it gave me the comfort to know that I can go a little bit deeper. And then more and more used to flow out. And it used to go from a little bit to like pages long. Or there might be some sort of other external trigger or impetus to go, I really need to explore this theme. And I would just write it out. So one of them was going back through some of my earliest memories and writing down just some of my earliest memories, and then realizing there was a goddamn theme around them all. And it was how many times I've been rejected by girls that I liked. And I'm like, really? This is the only memories that I've got from like 4 years old onwards to like, 7 or 8? Like, these are the ones that are left behind. Okay, wow. And then from there, it was, okay, I then was able to give myself a bit more comfort around, okay, I had some really strong emotions when I listened to some certain music back when I was that age. So I sat down, found the album, by the way, it was Dirty Dancing, the soundtrack, on cassette. I am showing my age. And I listened to it and just felt the emotions that came back, and then just started writing down those. And then from there, it was like pulling a thread, and you just sort of follow where it is. So journaling's a uniquely personal thing. But yes,
Hugely.
What you're saying is you got to get to the crux of it. How you get to the crux of it, and do you just jump all the way in, or do you just take baby steps? You'll start to get a feeling for it.
Absolutely. And to me, every time I ask the question why, it's just an invitation to go that next step deeper. It's why. Yeah, but why? Yeah, but why?
Isn't
Yeah,
it
but
like
why?
7? Isn't it like there's a rule of 7 when it comes to why?
Oh,
To
I've
get
never heard that.
to
I
get to
don't
the
know.
to get to the crux, you'll get to the crux of anything if you ask why 7 times.
Wow, I've never heard that. I might have to give it a
It's
try.
impossible because you'll get to the crux of it. Because it
Mm.
goes down to a point where once you hit that crux, either the truth comes out or you'll get a simple, there's so much discomfort, it becomes a I don't know, or I don't want to talk about it, but you've hit it.
Wow,
So 7 times.
that's interesting. I
It's
might have to give
brutal,
that a
but
go.
it absolutely works every time.
Yeah, wowza. So I guess if people are sitting there and they're wondering, like if you've made it this far, well done.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel around stillness? How do you feel around stopping? What does stillness look like for you? How do you capture those moments of stillness? Do you know one of my favorites is sitting in the car before coming inside. So that's my like transition time.
Ooh,
Even if
yeah.
it's only 2 minutes,
Yep.
if I sit in the car, no stimulus, no phone, no distraction, no anything, if I just sit in the car, and it's almost like my own little bubble of this time and space. It's so awesome. And I don't know exactly when I started implementing that. I know where I was living when I started implementing that. And I only remember because I had a garage that I could drive into the garage, close the door, and it was just literally 5 steps from my car to be inside the house.
Right.
So I remember where I was when I started doing that. But it almost was like I had to really regulate myself and really ground myself back into myself before walking into what I was going to walk into. So I also want to tie back. If you listen to our previous episode, we were talking about the default mode network and how we feel alive and how we experience ourselves. And some people, when they are still, when they really do stop and everything else fades away and they're just present in the moment, they feel completely disconnected from their sense of self. And that feels very threatening and very freaky and scary. And so what I would suggest is, if that is you, the way that you experience yourself is called interoception. And what interoception is beginning to have awareness of the sensory experience of your inner body. So see if you can have some prompting questions around whether or not you can perceive temperature in various aspects of your body, whether or not you can perceive weight. Can you sense the weight of your body on the chair that you're sitting on? Can you sense the shirt that you're wearing touching your skin? Can you sense firm touch, light touch, vibration? If you can start to perceive some of these sensory inputs, then it starts to anchor your awareness and your consciousness back into the experience of the physical body. And even if you start doing that just 1 minute at a time, literally set a timer and practice what those sensory inputs feel like, and having awareness of those sensory inputs to the exclusion of all other mental activity, that's going to be a really important step in your journey towards establishing and being able to experience stillness and experience yourself in that stillness.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Awesome. See you next time, Dave.
Boom, mic drop. Okay, everyone. Great episode. We will catch you next week. Bye, Ash.
Wow.
Have a great one.
See you guys.